Hello and welcome to Leveraging AI. This is Isar Meitis, your host. And in today's show, we are going to explore one of the most critical questions that business leaders are asking themselves today, which is how to pick the right AI project and how to successfully execute on them. And we're going to do this with the help of Khalifa Manaa, who is the CEO of Shapr, a company that helps businesses from different industries in different sizes select and implement AI solutions to improve their businesses and improve business results. At the end of the episode, I'm going to share news from this week. There are a lot of really important news this week from various aspects of the AI world. This week's show is brought to you by Multiply AI. Multiply is spelled Multplai. So just like multiply, but instead of Y in the end, AI in the end. And if you go to multiply.ai, you will be able to find any kind of education you want about AI for your business, from this podcast through courses and in-company consulting and training and so on. So go and check it out, multiplai.ai/services if you want to see everything that they have available. But now let's dive straight into how to pick the right AI projects and how to successfully implement them to achieve better business results. In the next few years, AI technology will change our world dramatically. Whether you are a business executive trying to catapult your business forward, or just somebody who refuses to be left behind and want to advance your career, this is the show for you. I'm your host, Isar Meitis, a serial entrepreneur and an AI enthusiast. You'll hear invaluable practical tips from innovative business leaders, AI practitioners, and some of the brightest AI minds in our world today on how you can leverage AI in ethical ways to advance your career and grow your business. Hello and welcome to Leveraging AI. This is Isar Meitis, your host, and I've got a really exciting show for you today. Everyone now, literally every business leader out there right now, or at least everybody that hasn't been hiding a rock for the last 8 months, is trying to run AI project in their business right now. Why? Because everybody feels it's going to give them a benefit and an edge over the competition. If you're going to do it faster, then you can get an edge before your competition does the same stuff. And it's true. The problem is very few people actually know what the hell that means to run an AI project for their business, and even less people know how to actually do it right. Our guest today, Khalifa Manaa, is one of those people that actually knows how to run this project. Why? Because that's what he has been doing in his company, Shapr. He's helping businesses define and launch successful AI projects and products. And it's not by surprise that he's doing it, because Khalifa is a serial entrepreneur himself. His main expertise is product launches, like tech product launches. So he, for years, has been in the business of defining projects correctly, launching them successfully, and applying different processes and systems and mindset in order to make that successful. All he's doing today is he built a business that does that in launching AI projects. And he calls it running impact first AI projects. So that's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about how to define, launch, and run successful impact first AI projects, which, as I mentioned, is probably one of the most talked about boardroom and C-suite topics in the world today. And hence, I'm really excited and humbled to have Khalifa as a guest of the show. Khalifa, welcome to Leveraging AI.
Awesome. Thank you, Isar. Super happy to be here. I love the pod. I listen to almost every episode. I've skipped a few. I'll go back and listen to them. And like you said, it's a very interesting topic, because after all this hype around ChatGPT, everyone's thinking about, okay, how do we add this AI to our business? And like you said, there's plenty of ways of doing this. Some of them lead to successful results, some don't. So that's what we're going to be talking about today.
I love that. And you and I had several conversations already, and I know you have a very well-defined process and well-defined strategy. But let's really define first, what is an impact first AI project?
Yeah. Okay. let's start with that. This is something that is close to my heart. When we started Shapr, we defined 4 principles, because I tend to believe that for you to build the right kind of company, the company where you want to be and you can be proud of, you have to define what that means, what are the core values. The first of those 4 impacts is impact first. What this means is that we say no to projects where we simply don't see an end result that will create an impact. And what I mean with impact is basically significantly improved customer experience or growth in revenue or cost savings. In most cases, we want it to be a number. And so I'll walk you through the process in a bit, but one key part of this process is, after doing ideation, what's possible, we turn this into these idea cards and we set a number of potential unlocked value to all. This could be something like a process becomes significantly faster, or it could be that we aim to increase revenues by 20%. It could be that we aim to win market share in a specific segment or something like this. But when impact first, by the way, it can be also a positive impact for human beings or the earth. I'm very happy we're exploring something with WF, which could be because I'm a kind of a sucker for nature. So I'm very happy about that. So in that case, the impact is slightly different. But even there, we set a number to it. So something that we can measure and something that ideally will help the company to end up where they want to be in 5 to 10 years. So it is a meaningful metric that we can measure. We set the goal before, and then we can see how much impact were we actually able to get.
Awesome. So basically, it's just good strategy and good project management. And instead of saying, oh, there's this cool AI tech, let's find a way to implement it, you do it the other way around. You're saying, I assume the first question you ask is, okay, going back to what you just said, where do you want the company to be in 3 to 5 or 10 years?
Yeah.
What can get you there? What bottlenecks exist today? And then you look for the right AI implementation to go there. Is this roughly the process?
Yeah, it is. And since last November, a lot of companies are curious into how do we attach this AI somewhere. And it's usually they've seen someone else do something with ChatGPT, and now let's do the same thing, which in some cases could actually make sense, but in most cases, maybe not. So our process starts exactly like you said. We start always from top down. So we want to start with, typically our process is 5 days. It's roughly based on, in my previous life, I used to do design sprints, which is a Google Ventures 5-day innovation format. Amazing. By the way, as a side note, this is a bit off topic, but we're looking into doing AI design sprints in product cases where we have a challenge in mind that we want to solve, basically doing ideation with ChatGPT or GPT-4, testing ideas with AI and so on, just making it significantly faster and less biased, because usually we fall in love with ideas. Okay, but so our 5-day process usually always start with, we gather around the core team for the sprint, and then it's led by the leadership of the company. And it varies. In some cases, this could be the CEO. Sometimes it's a transformational officer. Sometimes it's a digital officer. But someone from high at top kind of communicates to us first clearly, where do we want to take this company? What do we want to, in an ideal world, what would happen in 3 years or 5 years? And this kind of gives us an idea of where do we want to go? And then we start to ask questions of what's preventing from that happening. And we tend to do it on the first day of this process. We have this session. So we have the core team, we have the leadership. It's very important to have kind of leadership, and ideally a champion can then drive things forward, and have them all in the same room in the beginning.
So I want to pause you for 1 second. Who else is on the team? I agree with you 100%. You always want like a C-suite buy-in, because then there's somebody who can put his stamp of approval on everything that was said and represent the vision of the company. But who else sits in that room?
Yeah. Usually we want to have someone from product, ideally someone looking at the offering level, not a product manager. Someone from customer service, sales, IT, marketing, operations. Basically, the key segments that we might look into.
Okay.
There's just some variation because in some cases, companies have already that this is the area where we want to look at, where we want to find challenges or growth. Then, of course, the team could be smaller and slightly different. But in an ideal case, what we really want to do is look at it holistic. Let's just look, where do we want to take this company? And then look at how could we make that happen? So these are usually the people we want to have in the team. Activities that we usually do are in this first session, they're design thinking tools. They're interviews with other people, making notes of how might we, and this all just is fuel for ideation later on. This usually takes half a day and then another half a day to do documentation. To give you an idea of what this could mean, in a banking customer, this ended up being that they want to kind of transform their brand image to be, they've had a very traditional image. They want to freshen it up. They were planning to do a kind of a rebranding, like a facelift for their brand. And they want to be seen as more digital ready. And then they had in their wholesale or business banking, they wanted to increase their market share there. So this was an outcome of where would they want to be in 5 years. They would want to be seen as a digital modern bank, and they would want to increase their market share.
So this is awesome because this leads to a lot of follow-up questions, because this doesn't sound like an AI project, right? This sounds like a traditional business strategy decisions of this is the decision we want to take the company. How do you turn that into an AI process? What are the follow-up questions a company needs to ask itself? Because this is a perfect example, because it doesn't sound like an AI kind of thing. And yet I know you've done this project. So let's continue from here. What are the follow-up questions you need to ask yourself as a company in order to define A, whether this is an AI project, and B, if it is, what the project looks like?
Yeah, that's, by the way, a really critical point. A big chunk of this process is not AI.
Of course.
And I haven't found a way to get to a good outcome by skipping this, like without doing this part. It's just the other roads seem to lead to a solution first thing. And then we fall in love with the solution and the technology. We forget about why we're doing this. Usually no impact. So a key part of making sure that the impact happens is going through this route.
By the way, I agree with you 100%. I do the same thing. So in addition to the podcast and the courses and everything, I do consulting for businesses about how to implement AI. And it's the same exact thing. The beginning is traditional business consulting. Is let me understand the business. Let me understand where you're struggling. Let me understand your bottlenecks. Let me understand what you're trying to go. Let me understand what resources you have, what resources you're missing, what are the gaps. Excellent. And then, so I agree with you 100%. And I think that's probably the biggest problem companies have today when they come to implement AI is exactly this, where they want to jump into the tech side because it's exciting and it's cool. And like you said, they see other people doing it. And yes, you can solve small problem very quickly, meaning there's ways to harvest low-hanging fruits.
Yeah.
But if you want to change the trajectory of a business, like strategically, and leverage AI to do that, it's, I would say, 75% traditional business strategy, and then using the other 25% to apply AI on how to get there and how to close the gaps. But this is exactly where we are right now in the process you're describing. What do I need to ask myself in order to actually go the next step?
Yeah. Awesome. So in our process, the next step is usually looking from inside out. So the third step is bottom up, where we then go into practicality of what needs to happen. Inside out means that we're looking at, now that we've defined what we want in the big picture to happen, now we go into looking from the customer's point of view. How does it look like today? This can mean sometimes we just do testing whatever is interacting with this company. Sometimes we do customer interviews. In some cases, we might even do shadowing. So basically go see how their customers are interacting with this business. Some companies do this in-house and they do this periodically. And then we can leverage the knowledge they already have. In this banking case, for example, what we discovered really quickly was basically the pain points that enterprise customers, when they want to open a bank account, firstly, it takes really long time, up to 120 days. So 3-4 months.
Oh, wow.
From the moment that I want to open a bank account till you actually get it. And then when we spoke with a few customers who recently got their accounts open and joined, they all had these stories of how initially they felt like they gave a lot of information and documentation. And then 2 weeks later, they were asked about the same stuff again. Then a few weeks later again, then they had no visibility of what's going on. Then finally, 3 or 4 months later, they get an email that, hey, now you have a bank account. So the experience is really lacking compared to what the expectations are. Because we asked that too, what do you expect a bank account opening be? And it is exactly like it is in consumer world. Digital front end, I give information, 2 minutes later, I have access to a bank account that I can start doing my business. So that's the expectation. The reality was very far from it. At this point, we knew very clearly that, okay, for them to be able to, or one clear way how they can win market share is to solve this bottleneck. But then, of course, we have to figure out, why is this happening? Why is this taking 120 days?
Awesome. So let me summarize so far. Step one is gather the right people in the room, which is C-suite people plus key decision people or key operations people from the different departments that are going to be involved. Step number two, define where you want to go and what are the gaps that you're trying to close or the direction that you want to take. Step number three is now go and look what's the perception or what's the reality check of the situation of that company by asking clients. So now you have the idea that the company has about itself. Now you also have the reality check coming from the real world of, okay, this is what we see with regards to those topics that the company is talking about. What's the next step?
So then we look at bottom up. Now we've identified, okay, what's the customer experience? Not great. We know where we want to go. And now we start looking into what's, for us to win that market share, for us to get to wherever we want to go, certain things need to happen. What's preventing that? And this is where we ask questions from kind of people in operations. In this case, what's happening in those 120 days? What's going on? Walk us through the process very clearly so that we can identify root causes. We tend to map challenges. We tend to look at, for example, one exercise we often do is, what would the 13-star customer experience look like? I think you're familiar, and many listeners, this is an old Airbnb story, which I really love, and it actually worked really well in real life. I'll try to very shortly summarize it. It starts by, what would be a 5-star experience? Like 1 to 5 stars. What's a 5-star experience? We map it out. And then we think about, okay, what's the 3-star experience? What's the 1-star experience? So then we know what really sucks and what they think is. Then we're like, what would a 7-star customer experience look like? In Airbnb's case, it could be that, okay, the 7-star is that when you enter the apartment, they come with the champagne bottle, they have a personalized sign. And what would the 10-star experience, what would the 13-star experience? And then it gets into the territory of Elon Musk sends a private jet to pick you up. You end up in Mars and you have a party there and so on. But this kind of gives us an inspirational, what could be possible if everything was possible. And that kind of is, again, fuel for where do we want to get. We map challenges.
I want to touch on that because I love that point and I think it's critical in this point of the conversation. One of the amazing things AI enable us to do today is to really think outside the box. And what I mean by that is we are, as humans, and especially humans within a structured environment like a business, we think of things through existing lenses that we were trained to think through for decades.
Yeah.
Why? Because for decades, we were trained to look for process efficiencies. How do I do this process that is the given better, faster, more effective? The reality today that AI enables us in some cases to skip the process and get the outcome. I'll give a simple, stupid example. Let's say you want to do an SEO project. You need to go and research clients' websites and see which keywords they're ranking for. And then you need to do the analysis of how hard it is to rank for these keywords. And then you need to figure out topics you want to write about. And then you need to define the categories. And then you need to define the articles. And then you need to actually write the articles. And then you do need to put them on the right places on the website. And you need to do the backlinking. Now you can put this all into a system and it will do all of that. And you get 160 articles for the specific keywords of your competition with the right ones that you can actually compete for, et cetera, et cetera. And it's holy crap, like something that used to take a year can now take you 5 days. Now, yes, you need to have the knowledge on how to do that. But if you have the knowledge, you can get the outcome and not improve gradually different steps of the process. And there's multiple examples like that, meaning you have to think without any limitations, especially when it comes to knowledge and software. Meaning, yes, if you have supply chain management, there's no way I can land at 10 times X more resources on your factory tomorrow. Cannot do that. But when it comes to knowledge, marketing, decisions, optimizations, software, you can do things not 20% better, but 10x. And so you have to stop thinking in the frameworks you had before. Think of the 15-star, let's go to fucking Mars solution, because you probably can do it. And it's not easy.
Exactly.
We're trained to do something else.
Yes. And that's the kind of part of the challenge is, like you said, it's so mind-blowing that we don't think it's possible. And that's part of what we need to do is break those barriers and we use design thinking methods just to force people to think differently. We force them out of the box. Yeah, because like you said, a lot of things these days were just science fiction can be reality.
So let's go back to our process. Now you're trying to figure out what's the shooting for the stars solution. What's next?
Yeah, just to conclude that point, in this example case, again, the local bank here, what we figured out after going into it, the root cause was we have fairly strict regulation on know your customer process, especially for wholesale banking. It has to do with money laundering and this. Banks want to be safe. So to do this, they need to go through a lot of non-standard documentation related to the company setup, who are the owners. They need to figure out that they have a list of 50 to 60 things that they need to find. For example, who are the owners who own more than 7% equity of this company? Who has the power of attorney? All these kind of things. And because these documents they're not standard, it's just been a problem that they have not been able to solve. And because of these constraints, they've stopped thinking about it. It is reality. It is what it is. In their kind of case, what they have done is basic OCR to read documents, but still there's someone either actually doing this, going through page by page and finding the items, writing it down, or then scrolling through PDF trying to find stuff. Way to make that process faster, hire more people to do this. But that's been it. So that was the root cause. Usually what happens after this, we start 2 tracks. One, we do a discovery on data and technology. So basically we need to understand what's tech architecture, what data sources we have, how structured is the data. That's its own track with its own people. Usually IT, any data analysts they have, group up with a few of our engineers to just go through the details and the big picture view of what are we dealing with. And then simultaneously, what happens is with the core sprint team is ideation. Now that we have this problem, how could we solve this? Again, here we use design thinking tools to force people to think creatively. We usually start with kind of what's possible. What are the capabilities of AI these days on a high level? Just we understand what's possible. And we aim in a process where we start with a kind of like a white hat where there's no restrictions. And when we discuss, we have a rule of you can't say yes, but you can say yes, and so you can build on top of things. Because it's really, like you said, we don't believe that these things are possible. So that's why we want them to really dream and think big. And then we put on a black hat. We look at, okay, can we actually do these things or not? In this process, in my experience, the most important thing is to have a diverse group. So you want techies. So you want to have a machine learning engineer there. You want to have a data scientist there. You want to have someone from their IT. You also want to have someone from customer support who has no technical background. And you want someone from marketing. You want a very diverse group of people to come up with potential ideas. How could we solve this? In this case, the solution was actually fairly straightforward. What we need to do is read through these documents and to identify the right parts of information from there. What we ended up doing is fine-tuning a large language model. We used an open source model, so back then OpenAI didn't allow fine-tuning yet. They didn't have their enterprise plans. So we ended up using a Llama 2, fine-tuned with training material, of course, what the bank has a lot, to be able to find these 50, 60 pieces of information of each company. In most cases, with the documents we ask, we're actually able to perform the KYC instantly. Of course, then we have flags, we have risk scores when we need more information. As we did the first implementation, we left that process manual for now, but now we're looking into using LLMs to communicate with customers and automate that part as well. So that's in this case.
So I want to touch on that, on the last two things you said, because I think they're brilliant and I think they're critical. One is, what's the practical aspect of shooting for the stars? And the practical aspect, you said, have two steps. Steps number one is really defining what shooting for the stars is from a outcome perspective. Okay, we want to do the process faster. That's fine. But what does that mean? Okay, it means asking for specific documents. And again, I'm now talking about this case, but this could be generalized for anything else. But in this case, it's okay. We need to ask for specific documents. We need to put them in some kind of a database. We need somebody to read all these documents, fishing for specific pieces of information, following a checklist to verify that we have all of those. And if not, raise specific flags. Okay, that's what it means from a practical perspective. Can we do this with AI? And in this case, the answer is absolutely yes. And I think you touched on another point, and especially in a bank, and I think even today when OpenAI, even now with their enterprise level that they're saying they're not going to train on your data, I don't know. But for a bank or anybody that has more strict guidelines on data management, whether it's healthcare, banking, financial institutions, legal, etc., defense, you probably want to run your own sandbox on-premise server that you know where all the data is and you don't have to put it on third-party servers. And so that's another practical aspect of the solution. But there is a practical implementation that allows you to build that shooting for the star solution. So these are the steps. And then you're saying, okay, now you can do the follow-up. Okay, so you can go beyond, you were at the 13 stars kind of thing. Okay, can we go to 14? And the answer is, yeah, we do a step 2 of the project. We'll figure it out and we keep on going. Amazing. We're about to continue from there in another example, I think.
Yeah, no, I was about to say that usually this ideation session depends on how why we're looking at this case. Because sometimes the challenge is not clear. Or it could be that it's a broad challenge. We might end up with 15 potential ideas how to bring this company forward. So it's actually not that common that we end up with a clear way of solving a problem that can actually create significant impact. So often it's a collection of these.
So I want to ask you a few follow-up questions before we dive into a few more examples, because I think it's critical for business decision makers to understand this. Because one is, how do you then decide? Because usually you're going to have more than one solution. You may even have more than one problem in the beginning, right? You're like in the very first step you define, you may have more than one problem you need to solve in order to grow the business. So how do you define? Two, how do you evaluate resources that are required? Because sometimes you're saying, yeah, this solution can do it. It's going to be $5 million and it's going to take a year and a half, and that's too much money and too long. So maybe it's not the right solution for us. So let's dive for a second to that step of, here is we finish with ideation, to how do we turn this into an actual project with resources and making stuff happen.
Yeah, awesome. So first step we do with that, I have this template. We use these idea cards. Basically, on every card, we don't yet go into crazy amount of detail, but we estimate complexity in terms of technology, could be some operational stuff as well. And then we look at what's the potential outcome of this. And this is where we add that number. So using benchmarks from other implementations, using forecasting, we try to be with as precise as possible of how much value can be unlocked. This. Then we do on a high level, we look at, okay, what are the dependencies? What needs to happen? Could we have some legal trouble if we do this? Are there other compliance stuff that we need to, for example, like you said, enterprise, especially finance, healthcare, something like this, privacy is very important. By the way, on a side note, my vision is most enterprises will end up having tens or hundreds of small, very specific fine-tuned LLMs.
Agreed.
That's another topic. But yeah, it's a process of standardizing each of these ideas, complexity, estimated cost on a fairly high level, and then what's the value that we can unlock. Based on this, we prioritize them, create a backlog, and then the top 3 ideas, we go into a little bit deeper. And then we can go back. We usually end this week with a session where we go through everything we did during the week. And then we end up with, these are the 3 things that will create most impact with the least effort. This is what it means in terms of cost, timelines, and these are the implications. What we expect to happen if we do this project.
Phenomenal. I want to ask you another question that's in the top of my head, and I'm sure for other people listening as well. So let's take this particular project, right? So we're looking at, because I think on a very high level, a lot of people will end up with something like that, meaning we have a big problem that can be solved by using proprietary data that we have in the business that we need to train a model on. So if I generalize what you said, that's the generalization of that. What's the general effort from a time perspective and from a budget perspective of doing what I just said? Meaning, is this, I assume it's not thousands of dollars, but is it lower tens of thousands, higher tens of thousands, low hundreds, higher hundreds, millions? Like, where does that fall from a general idea? And of course, every project is going to be different, but very high level, where does that fall?
On a ballpark, our goal is usually 4 to 6 weeks to do a POC. Purpose of this, of course, for all parties to test that we can actually do it. As we're dealing with bleeding edge and with LLMs, fine-tuning is always, we have a fairly certain or fairly high confidence level, but we always POC. A project like this, after POC to get into production, around 4 to 6 months. Yeah, around that cost would be, we're talking about $200,000-$300,000.
Okay. And the POC is probably 10% of that ish?
Yeah, right.
Okay, I think that's gives people a ballpark. So you're talking about lower tens of thousands to get an idea if your shooting for the star thing is going to work. And then you're going to spend 10x that, which makes sense, over the next 46 months to get a working, functional thing. I want to put things in perspective for a second. We're talking about the shooting for the stars solution that can transform the business. In this particular case, probably a multi-million-dollar banking operation, spending only 4 to 6 months, spending only X number of hundreds of thousands of dollars. So going back to our conversation, it's a no-brainer.
And by the way, of course, that's part of the reason why we use numbers when we estimate the outcomes. It's basically to make that very simple. We do this thing. We can increase your revenues by 20% annually. Company knows what that means in terms of dollars compared to the investment. It becomes very often a no-brainer. And why it becomes a no-brainer is simply because, like you stated, this is so transformational. We can take such a significant leap in customer experience, in like you said, marketing optimization. It's insane. We have a case with just doing dynamic pricing on e-commerce. We're able to increase GMV by 20%, profits 5%. And these are big numbers, of course, compared to the cost.
Amazing. Khalifa, I think this is a perfect note to end. Like, your summary now was, you can do stuff that was impossible before. And if you stop thinking that stuff is impossible and you start exploring these kind of things through the lens that Khalifa just shared, meaning here's a process you can go through, which is more of a strategic consulting review kind of process. But then the outcome is not limited by traditional mindsets, technologies, and processes. You can go, and I'll use the same word you used, transformational change in a relatively short amount of time. Khalifa, this was amazing, really well thought after, really valuable for companies. If people want to follow you, work with you, find you, talk to you, learn more about you, what's the best way to do that?
You can easily find me from LinkedIn. I'll share on the show notes also my email. Feel free to contact me anytime. I'm very much I love this stuff. So I'm very open to having conversations, even when you don't know whether you want to do something or not. Happy to have a chat about it, brainstorm, and think about what could that 13-star experience mean in your case.
Amazing. Khalifa, thank you so much. Fascinating conversation. I appreciate your time and I appreciate you.
Awesome. Thanks for having me. So much fun. All the best.
What a fantastic conversation with Khalifa. He obviously has a lot of experience in doing this in real life and hence has a lot of great insights. The biggest take on this, and you heard me say this before, AI projects, especially large-scale AI projects, are like any other business projects. First and foremost, there has to be a business goal that you're trying to achieve, and then a strategy that will take you there, and then KPIs to monitor how you're getting there, and only then finding the right AI solution for that. And now let's dive to a lot of exciting news from this week. There were so many really important news that it was very hard for me to pick just the ones I want to share. As always, in the show notes, there's going to be links to even more news than what I'm sharing now. But let's dive into just the stuff that we have to share because it was really important. And we'll start with Meta. Meta made several different really large announcements this week. They launched what they call Meta AI, which is advanced conversational AI assistant that runs on all their chat platforms, WhatsApp, Messenger, Instagram, and even their virtual reality and augmented reality devices. So imagine something like ChatGPT, including all its new capabilities of the ability to create images, etc., that is built straight into all of Meta's platforms. They also announced AI Studio platform that will allow businesses to build chatbots into their messaging apps. It's obviously a huge step forward by Meta that so far mostly played in the open space world and allowing people to use their models for other stuff. This is, I think, their first shot that they're firing in the bigger wars of generative AI domination. They also announced something that they call Characters, which is their partnership with several different celebrities and running a virtual version of these celebrities that you can now chat with on the different Meta platforms. This allows access to millions of people who would like to chat with their favorite people, but were not able to do it so far. This is obviously not the real person, but over time, I assume it's going to get better and better and going to be very close to actually chatting with the real person. Meta also announced a partnership with Ray-Ban, and they're jointly launching smart glasses that will have the Ray-Ban quality of sunglasses together with Meta's AI and visual capabilities. So it will be able to record stories straight from your cameras. It will be able to listen to you and respond to you using their AI platform. This is a very interesting move forward into wearable things that will connect back to social media. Whether I like it or not, I'm not 100% sure at this point. I think my kids are going to love it. I feel that this is another big intrusion into my personal space and privacy, but I definitely see this as an interesting step forward. These are not some bulky, weird glasses. There's different versions of them. They all look classy and stylish and yet integrate all these smart capabilities into them. So from a technology perspective, this is definitely a very interesting step forward. Another interesting piece of news that worked behind the scenes by Meta was that they've released Llama 2 Long AI, which is an advanced, more capable version of Llama 2, which is already highly sought after and widely used open source model for almost anybody who wants to use open source these days. And based on the paper that they've released, it already outperforms GPT 3.5 Turbo and Claude 2 on multiple benchmark tests. So while we just said that Meta started playing in the field of actually leveraging the platforms, they're continuing to play in the open source world as well, releasing better and better models that anybody can use to develop more stuff. This is aligned with the strategy that they've been supporting for a very long time. And from Meta, let's move to another giant in the field, which is Amazon. So two big pieces of news from Amazon this week. One is that Amazon is going to be investing $4 billion in Anthropic, the company behind Claude 2. This is a very interesting partnership between, on one hand, Anthropic, that has one of the most advanced models out there, that just recently added a paid version to its platform, together with Amazon, that can provide them access to basically the world, and that can give them access to a huge amount of customers that are running on Amazon AWS, as well as the ability to use their computing power that they have in AWS. So a very interesting partnership between two very big giants that I think in the big scheme of things will provide more access to more advanced models to more people, which is a good thing. The only bad thing is it's still staying within the hands of the same few players that will be able to afford to play the big game. Another piece of news that's coming from Amazon is that their Bedrock platform that they've announced and released to a small group of beta users under AWS. Bedrock is the platform that allows companies to build apps and agents using generative AI models through different APIs within the AWS ecosystem. They just released it to the public. Within this platform, people had access to models from AI21 and Anthropic and Cohere and Stability AI. And now they're adding Llama 2 from Meta as well. So a supermarket of AI models that is available under one umbrella, connected to a lot of existing solutions and capabilities under the AWS umbrella. Again, not a big surprise, but I think a very smart move by Amazon by allowing people who use AWS to use basically their models of choice. Either pick one and run with it across everything you need, or pick the right model for the right job, which gives flexibility to the people who are going to develop AI solutions within the AWS world. Moving to the third giant on the list today, or maybe the fourth if we include Anthropic in that list, is OpenAI, the company behind ChatGPT, made a huge release this week, which includes multiple new capabilities under ChatGPT. It now, as they said, can see, listen, and speak beyond the capabilities that it had before. They've added the capability to chat with it via voice, which existed before through Whisper. Now it's built into the platform. It can now speak back through text-to-speech capabilities, so you can have a vocal conversation with ChatGPT. It can create images within the platform itself while chatting with it back and forth through the DALL-E 3 integration into ChatGPT that we mentioned last week as well. And another really cool and interesting feature is that it can understand images as part of the inputs. That's a huge step forward that provides so many amazing use cases, because now ChatGPT can understand graphs and diagrams and flowcharts and images and user manuals. Basically, any visual thing that you're going to load to it, you can ask questions about it and integrate it into the inputs to your conversation. Like I said, the number of use cases is endless. So a huge step forward by ChatGPT that is continuing to push the envelope now that there's more and more competition from other players. The last two pieces of news I want to share are more practical and more of use cases of AI. So one of them is Zapier just launched what they call Canvas. Canvas uses AI to help companies generate workflows and provide templates based on specific user needs. It allows you to automate a lot more than Zapier could automate before with the usage of AI, and do this across every process you have, either personally or in your organization. This is a very interesting and yet expected step forward, where AI is going to be integrated into every process that we have in the business, while filling out the places where AI shines and allowing people to take the steps that people can do better. And the last piece of news is probably less relevant to most of us, but I think it's important to discuss, which is that Microsoft researchers introduced AutoGen, which is an artificial intelligence framework that simplifies the orchestration and optimization and automation of large language model workflows. And to simplify this to all of us, to simple terms, it's using AI to make AI implementation even easier. So this is the next step of everything, right? We're going to see AI writing code for new AI. We're going to see AI creating new hardware for AI. And we're going to see AI orchestrating and helping other AI platforms run more efficiently. And I believe we're going to see more and more of that. A lot of big things are coming in Q4 of this year that are going to be very significant to businesses and how AI is going to integrate with them. Until next week, go and explore AI, play with it as much as you can, learn new things, share them on social media, share them with me on LinkedIn. And until next time, have an incredible week.